on to another edition of Tech Tuesday presented by Delta Media Group, where the one ring to rule them all is more than likely coming from the telephone. So, today we are going to take a look at the customer import functionality in the DeltaNET. This is the functionality that allows you to take a CSV as your source file that you've exported from some third-party system and import all of the customers in that file into the DeltaNET all at once. We've added some new functionality to it, or some new capabilities to it rather, so we'll take another look at it. You can see how that all works. So first off, to get to the customer import tool, I'm going to go over here and click on CRM to go to my Customer Center page, and then we'll scroll down to the Actions section and click on Import Export Customers. That'll open up another modal here where I can click on Import Contacts. Now, another way to get to this page is through the quick actions. Like with any other page, you could search for it there and find your way to this page this way. Also keep in mind that whether or not you have a link to your Customer Center, where that link goes, it depends on your customer or your agent package level, and also depends on your company, because those other things can be customized there. Also, the Customer Center page can be customized to remove that action section so that you don't have a link to the import-export functionality. So just keep all that in mind, and if push comes to shove, you can search for the import up here and get to this page that way. So once you found your way here, we're just going to click on Choose File, and you can see there are some specifications for the file there. And we're going to go to my test file here and open that one up. So now we have the file in place. You can see that the file must be smaller than 16 megs, and it needs to be a CSV file, and you want the first row of that file to be the column headings. It's not going to import the first row, so even if that first row was not column headings in your case, if that was an actual customer record, it would technically still work, sort of, and you'll see in the next step what I mean there. So it will sort of still work, but it would skip over the record in the first row. So it's definitely best to just have that first row be the column headings. And it usually is. You usually don't have to worry about that. So next, we're going to select our file type. Generally, it will be standard CSV, and that is what I have it set to. What that's doing, or what you're basically defining here, is whether or not you want the system to try and map all the fields in the file for you. So if I select Top Producer, you'll see how it loads this up down here, and this is showing you what fields our system expects to see in that CSV that was exported from them, so that it knows what columns to map those to. If we get onto DACNO, you can see it's the same deal: Outlook, vCard, or a Booge CSV file. In all of those cases, the system will try to map the fields from your CSV to the matching fields in our system automatically, because it knows what to look for. If you go with standard, it just means that you're mapping those fields on your own, though it will still try to figure some out. So we'll take a look at that here. Next, before I can click Upload File, I need to check this box to certify that the list I'm importing was not purchased from a third party, does not violate any terms in the CAN-SPAM Act, and does not violate Delta's acceptable use policy. So you just have to check that box, and now we can click the Upload File button. Now I will mention, if your file is over a certain size, so if it is a particularly large import, it may also drop a questionnaire here for you, where you would have to answer some questions, just to certify kind of where the list came from, where you got it, and just kind of doubly certify that this is a list that you're able to market to. So if you did get that step, you would just fill out those questions and submit it, and then our support team then reviews the list. So after that, you'll find your way here to your Import Options page. Now what this allows you to do is map all of those fields, and you can see that some it did pick up automatically. So the way this works is this is the name of the field in our system, email. This drop-down menu is populated with all of the entries in the heading row from your CSV, so all of your column headings. So what you're doing is saying everything in this column should go into the email field. And it does a pretty good job of picking up, based on those field names, which one should go where for at least the primary fields. So you can see email, first name, last name, status. It found all those automatically. Address, it found all those, and those are all correct. City to city, state to state. And it's very easy for me, because in my case, the column headings in my CSV matched pretty closely to the field names in our system. But what it also does to allow you to kind of verify that the data is correct is it shows you the contents of that column in the first 5 rows of your CSV. Now my CSV is just for testing, so I don't have everything filled in, so you can see those come in blank. But in the case of the email addresses, this allows you to very easily verify that what's in that column really is email addresses. And if you're using a CSV where you have it really filled out with all of your customer information, you'll see all these filled out, and that'll make your life a little bit easier when it comes to mapping these fields. So we'll scroll down a little bit more. Anything that it did not find a match for, or that it didn't know what to match to, it will have it as ignore field. So it just means it's not going to import anything into this field for any of the contacts imported from this CSV. If that's the case, and let's say I know that the daytime phone number is in my file, I can select this drop down and I can find I do have a day phone field. It just didn't know to map that one. So I pick that up, and now it will map everything in this day phone column to the phone daytime field in our system. And I would just do that for any of these that I do have a match for. Evening phone I have, cell phone I have. So you can see it loads those up. So that's how the vast majority of these fields work, or how the system works here for this mapping. But there are a few special fields too. So if we scroll down a bit here, the first one we'll come across is the spouse email field. So if your source CSV does have a column for the spouse email address, that can be imported. And you can see their spouse name, to match it up completely, so it's not just an email. But in the case of the email, for anybody that does have a spouse email set on their record, I can set it to copy that email on all the communications that go to the customer that is imported from this file. So basically what I'm saying is copy their spouse on all the emails that go to them. That is what this extra option would do. And it just saves you going back in later on and going through all the contacts from this CSV and marking the spouse to be contacted on all of those. You can just do it here and do it all at once. Now the next specialty field you have here is the groups field. So what this allows you to do is a customer can be in multiple groups at the same time. So if there is a column in your CSV that has the names of all of the groups that customer could be in, the system can automatically create those groups and put that customer in those groups and just run down the line. Now it also won't create groups that are already in the system. So if there's already a group, or let's say for example, the first contact in your list is in the hot customers group. You don't already have a hot customers group, so it will create that group for the first one and put that customer in it. If you have 100 other customers in that list that also are in that hot customers group, it won't create 100 hot customers groups. It will recognize that one exists, and it will put those customers in that group. So it handles that grouping for you. The main things to keep in mind here is that this is looking for a comma-separated or pipe-separated list of group names. So within that one field for that contact record in that column, it has to have the name of every group they're in separated by a comma, and then it can actually insert them into all those groups. Alternatively, you can use a pipe for that. So a pipe is just on your keyboard, it's probably shift and backslash. That's what, not everybody knows where the pipe is. But it can be separated by a pipe as well. Now just like that, we have the labels field. This is exactly the same, except you can only use labels that are in the system. So to find those labels, or the labels that are already set up in the DeltaNET, you can go to your customer list page and you can actually search customers by label there, and there is a drop down that contains all of the labels that are available. So that's typically the easiest way to handle that, or the easiest way to see what those are. But if you do have those labels entered in to your CSV for customers, then it can automatically attach those labels to the customers. And just like all the other fields, you would just select this. Now this one also does need to be separated, or all of the labels, if the customer has multiple labels tied to them, those need to be separated by a pipe. Those can't be separated by a comma. So we'll continue to work our way down the list. And then the last special field, like I said, all these work pretty much the same way, but the last special field we have in here is the email opt-out field. So the email opt-out field is basically looking for a yes. If it imports a customer and there is a yes in the field that this is mapped to, or a field in the column that this is mapped to, then it will opt that customer out of an email. If there's anything else in that field, it will not opt them out. So really it's looking for yes or no, but I mean, from a technical standpoint, yes is yes and anything else is no. So, so that is how this field works. And if they are opted out, that is a global email opt-out. It will opt them out of all email communications. So you may import contacts like that if you want to, keep their address on file, keep their customer contact information on file, even though they're not going to get any email from the system because they're opted out. Now the next thing we can do here is we have a group selection. So you saw the groups field up here, and we went over that one. This is if you have a customer that's in multiple groups, you can define all those in a single field, and that can pick them up and put them in those groups. But if you want every contact that's in this file to go into a single group, either in addition to those groups or instead of them, if you don't have those groups mapped, you can do that here. So I can select any of my groups that I already have, or I can create a new group by just selecting new group and typing in a name. That would create a brand new group, and every customer imported from this particular file or this particular import will go into that group. Now, the next thing we can do is we can automatically create Market Watch reports for everyone that is added here. In order for the system to create a Market Watch for them, they need to have an address. So the address fields we saw earlier were mapped. If we scroll back up here, way up here, there we go, address 1, city, state, zip. Those are kind of the key fields there, so it's looking for those for the customer's personal address. If they do have a personal address filled in there, you can have the system automatically create a Market Watch for them. So your options here are you can create a Market Watch based on their city, state, and zip code, based on just their city and state, based on just their zip code and state, or based on a radius around that address. So in all these cases, they need to have an address in because that city, state, that stuff has to come from somewhere. But they have to really have a full address in to run it off of the radius. Now you can see when I select any of these that the options down here change, and when I select radius, I even get an additional option there. But this is saying for any Market Watch that it does create based on your settings here and based on the customer's address, you can also have it tie a price minimum maximum, so a price limit to that Market Watch, and you can have it, or really you set this on any Market Watch, but you set the interval at which that Market Watch report will be sent to them. So quarterly by default, but you do have a few different options here as far as how often the Market Watch report would be sent to them. So keep in mind that this setting, just like this, applies to everyone that is imported here. And in this case, for Market Watches, everyone that's imported that has an address. So you won't be setting this price limit per Market Watch. You're setting it on every Market Watch that's created from this import. Now, lastly, if you did select radius-based, then you can choose what that radius is. And this is actually in miles here. So this is saying by default 5 miles around the address. You can make that 10. You can make it 2. Just whatever makes sense in that market. But again, it's applying to every Market Watch it's creating from this import. Now, the last thing you can do as far as the imports is you can control how it handles duplicates. So the way it is set by default is if that customer is already in your customer center or already in your customer database in the DeltaNET based on email address. That's how it figures it out. But if it's already in there based on email address, it'll see that the account already exists and it won't create a new one. So it just won't import. Now your next option is it creates a duplicate. It'll see that it has one in there already, it just won't care. It'll go ahead and create a second customer record with the same email address and whatever information came from your CSV. Our next option is we can merge with an existing contact and favor the existing data. So what this means is that if it does find a duplicate, it's going to take any data that's in your CSV that does not exist in the contact in the DeltaNET, and it will attach that information to it. However, if, let's say, the first name was different in your CSV versus what's in the DeltaNET, it will favor what's in the DeltaNET, so it will keep what is in the DeltaNET. And a good example of that would be, let's say your CSV has someone's first name as Robert, and then in your DeltaNET there is a contact with the same email address, but the first name is Bob. If you select this option, that person's going to continue to be Bob. If we select the other option where we favor the new data, it's going to change their name to Robert instead. So anytime that there is a conflict between what's in the old data and what's in the new data, and there's only one data point for that, like first name, last name, things like that, it will take the stuff from your CSV if you're favoring new data, or it will keep the stuff that's in the system already if you favor existing data. So that is how that works. And then we also just have a link here to the duplicate or merge contacts tool. That could be used to merge contacts after the fact. So you could just create duplicates, and if you wanted to handle those later and merge them later, kind of on a per person basis, because it is worth noting that just like these other settings here, this will affect every contact imported here. So maybe you don't want every contact to favor the existing data versus the new data. If that was the case, you would just create the duplicate, and later on you could use this merge contacts tool and merge them however you'd like. So our next options here is we can save and process later. So if I do that, it'll save the file and all of my options in the system, but it won't actually do anything with that information. And we'll save this to not import. So maybe I'm not sure what I want to go with options-wise here, or maybe there's some more fields that I want to clean up or do some more mapping on, and I just don't know right now. I could save and process later to do that. Or I can save and process now, in which case I'm saving, and then the system will immediately kick off the import. The import, depending on how many contacts you're actually adding here, may not be completed instantly. Well, definitely not instantly. They're usually pretty fast, but if it is a huge import, it could take a little bit of time. But this does kick off the process right away. So in this case, I'm going to save and process later, and then we can take a look at the other interface here. You can see once I save it, it takes me back to our import page. And then right up here at the top, this is the file name, the number of customers that were in it, and right now it's marked as not ready because I told it to wait. So from here, I can go to my Actions button and I can either delete it if I want to abandon this import altogether. I can click on Options if I want to go back to that previous page. Here we are, and reset all of my options for that import. We'll go back and resubmit our form here. There we go. And then lastly, I could just set as ready. And if I do that, that'll actually initiate the import. Or just ready the process for it. So this is a small enough import that if I set this as ready, it'll probably be uploaded in just a couple of minutes. If this had thousands of contacts in it, it might take a little while after I set it as ready before it actually does all of the importing. But there you have it. So from there, you can see all of your import history here. So it is easy for you to go back through, see all of your imports. And then as one last piece, one more thing that you can do with these imports is if I go back to a Customer Center page, and we'll go back down to Actions and click on this Import Export Customers again, you can see we have an option to delete imports as well. So let's say I went through this whole process, I did my customer import, and it didn't work the way I wanted it to. For whatever reason, it just didn't work, something went wrong. I can always go back here, delete imports. These are all the imports I've done. I would just select the one I want to delete and click Delete Selected Import, and that would delete all the customers that were imported as part of that import so that I can just start over fresh. So there you have it. That is the customer import export along with a new functionality that allows you to actually merge those contacts and create market watches based on those imports. So now you can see the functionality related to the customer import in the DeltaNet. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to email support@deltagroup.com or give us a call and we can help you out with whatever you need. And thanks a lot for joining me. I will see you again next week.